Hi, this is Farrell. Welcome to page 12 of issue 2 of Robot Todd and my little video here of the experience. First off, I did some thumbnails on my warm-up sheet. Normally I'll do one of these, if you've seen any of these videos before. I'll just do a quick drawing of Robot Todd with a pen just to kind of get into the page. And I have a lot of times I'll do a bunch of thumbnails in advance, but sometimes I'll do a smaller thumbnail on this page, but I did kind of big thumbnails this time. And I stuck fairly close to them. I messed with the dialogue a little bit from what I had in my... oh, that's kind of interesting. You can see me making circles here with different random implements. I think I had I was looking for my stencil and I started using lids to different things and just to get the hole in that second panel right. But basically this page is... the last page we saw Robot Todd got swept away underwater, and so it's like his first panel he's kind of like a little discombobulated. Second panel he comes up to the hole that the fox told him about, the little tunnel, his escape hatch. And in the third panel he's swimming through it and kind of wondering about his friends. And in the last panel you get to see where his friends are at, although he can't seem to see him. So you can already see in that first panel, I did some erasing. I sketched in, kind of loosely sketched in everything. And then it was just, the figure was too big, so I decided to erase him. And I changed a lot of the dialogue too, and a lot of this little detritus that was floating around underwater. Like I originally had a thought balloon in the second panel of, there's a second version of the first panel. I don't think that one stuck either. But I originally had a thought balloon of him saying, like, this is the way the fox went, or the fox told me to go, something like that. And then I changed it just because I was like, oh, yeah, he thinks visually. A lot of times we'll even have, like, little icons appear over his head that other people can see, like he can project images. So I thought rather than having just the whole thing be words, that I would just do a little drawing of the fox there, with an arrow panel. So it's like the reader can kind of get what he's thinking just by looking at that, like, oh, this is the way the fox went, or the fox said to go. And so there you can see in the first panel, I actually drew Robot Todd's messed up arm, because in the previous page he tries to extend his arm and grab his friend, grab Sept, but then I realized after I did a couple different versions of the drawing that I wasn't happy with. I was like, oh, it's actually his right hand that reaches out. So I think I maybe drew it like 4 times, and this last drawing here I think is the one that stuck. I might have messed with it a little bit, but I ended up changing the dialogue a little bit, just kind of shortening it and getting it more concise. Like he's like, instead of saying like, my systems are all jumbled, it's like systems jumbled. It's like he doesn't need to say my or I or anything, because it's like we're inside his head. I figured that would be easier. And then you can see, too, I'm adding the ghost here, the little wizard ghost that got, met her demise in the first issue. She's been kind of following around in the background, like watching Todd and stuff, and they're going to have like an interaction soon, another interaction. So in the second panel, I just sketched her lightly in there on the side. You can see it. There's like a tank top floating and like one of those little gremlin heads kind of floating along with like a can or something else. And then, yeah. And then in the third panel, you can see her in the background. And I wanted it to be kind of subtle. Looks like I just redrew that first panel again. And then the last panel, where we have him thinking about his friends, I actually used photo reference for the very last panel. I don't normally do any diagonal panels. Like that diagonal bisection I made there is kind of unusual for me. I like to keep it sort of like square grids, like all my pages. Like guys like Paul Pope and like a lot of manga artists do like these diagonal panels, and something about that, like, not when they do it. I mean, it's great. I love Pope's work, and I'm fine with like when manga artists do it and stuff. But I just I don't know, just kind of my own weird little rule sense. I don't know. It kind of bothers me when I do it. So, but this time it felt fitting, just because like I wanted to keep the 4-panel grid, but I still wanted to show that both these characters were in separate places, and it seemed fitting there. So here you can see that I'm inking, and I'm using one of the Faber-Castell Pitt pens. I think I used a size F for the lettering this time, and then I just kind of switched over and started inking the characters and everything with the S. And I did something unusual for me as well in the last panel is that, I photo referenced that last panel. So I looked at a picture that I saw on Instagram of a guy like surfing in a canal, like in England or something. I don't know where it was, but I really liked the way that looked. I took some screen caps because I was like, oh, this is perfect for my comic, showing splashing and stuff, rushing water, and it was just kind of happenstance. So I used the reference to get the water right, and then I just kind of sort of faked Fern on the little skateboard turned surfboard. And then I did a thing that I haven't done very much in this comic at all is I inked some of the background because in the screen cap that I took, the little canals that were in front of the surfer were completely black. And normally I just kind of let sort of like an atmospheric perspective and don't get anything like too dark in the background. I don't ink anything in the background. I just ink the characters and stuff in the foreground. But that I was like, well, I'll just outline these with the Pitt pen. And then later I went in with a brush when I was painting and just went straight black ink on those two tunnels. And there you can see the sort of the first pass of the color. I don't have film of it because I was looking at the screen cap on my phone as I was painting, just to lay in the basic color shapes and everything for it. And I worked on a little more, you can see later, filling in her skin tones and the rest of her outfit. And I made her clothes and stuff really dark. Like I actually used ink on some of it just because I wanted it to look wet. Like I wanted her clothes to look all wet. So here you can see I'm holding up the board, and that's partly to get let the gravity kind of work for me doing these big fields, these big areas of color. I want to keep it kind of flat and smooth, and it's easier to do when you kind of have it at your page at an incline because it's sort of like the little bead of water sort of sits along the bottom, and you can kind of keep adding paint to that and have it be smooth without it getting like all leaving like weird little lines and stuff in it. And also too, it was like really hard for me to see the page because there was like I had these direct lights on it, and there was kind of like a reflection, and I couldn't really see it. So it was helping me pull the board up to get like a different angle on it, for me to see better. So yeah, you can see here that this is like basically the first color pass, first or second on this, and you can see that I've added some more color to the last panel. I added some skin tone to Fern and painted Sep's suitcase red and started on the face a little bit. And yeah, I felt like the backgrounds, the water was like a little muddy and uneven, and I wanted it to be darker. It still didn't get quite as dark as I wanted overall by the finish, but I was like happy enough with it just to leave it alone because I didn't want to overwork it. And I felt like that the last panel was so detailed and kind of popped that I felt like the first three panels, it's fine that they're just sort of like the same color scheme and kind of all sort of blend together. And I thought the last panel kind of goes pow, to me anyway. I don't know. I added a couple little color spots like the fishes and stuff. And I was sort of debating what color to do the arrows. And I just went ahead and went with blue, like keep the little, in the third panel, you can see there's like two versions of Todd just to kind of show it's like time passing, like, he's swimming down the one tunnel and then goes down the other tunnel. There's not really two Todds in that panel. It's just sort of like a time lapse of him in one panel. Something I remember from like Spider-Man comics and stuff is sometimes they'd have like a superhero like Spider-Man or whatever jumping around on rooftops. And so there'd be like 6 or 7 of him like in the same panel, like at different stages. Like, you had the camera set up, and just snapped it each time you moved, but it's like the background's all the same. So here you can see I'm like adding some white. It's sort of like kind of white gouache. It's this stuff called bleed proof white, and I think it's by Dr. Martens, the same company that makes the Black Star ink that I use, and you can just get it at any art supply store. But it's good for like going in at the end and adding like little white areas that you want to punch up, or mixing with colors, and it creates like an opaque layer. So if you have like a mess up or something, you can kind of cover it up with that. And I kind of like the way it looks with the blending the colors. Sometimes it gives it this kind of neat matte finish. And that's the finished page. I have a Patreon if you want to check it out, help support the comic. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.